Alright guys, we finally have it in the house, or on the trail. The Bullet from P-51. This is not your average bike, certainly not in terms of price. It is $3,850. And when it comes to this bike, that price tag dominates the conversation. Because on paper, the motor is nominal, 750 watts, a 48 volt battery. It seems like a huge ripoff. But when you get up close, and you look at the craftsmanship, the quality, the fact that this is built in America, you begin to see how it's different than most cheaper Chinese bikes. I'm not saying that it's worth the price tag. I'll give you guys more developed thoughts as we go through the video. But I want to begin by showing you guys a close-up walkthrough of the quality components this bike is composed of. So beginning up front here, we have a KKE fork. The exact model name here is BF-34. And it has a ridiculous, like 8 inches of travel. It performs great, but even aside from the performance of the shock, this uses a through axle. This is one of those components that cheaper $2,000 bikes will never have. And it's great safety features. These are way more secure than older, outdated dropouts. And they also add stiffness and rigidity to the overall fork. Another thing that adds rigidity is the double crown. So we have that double clamp mechanism, and the handlebars connect via a direct mount stem, a much higher quality and much more expensive component that serious riders will always prefer. And people just don't realize that this front fork, along with the wheel, in and of itself costs around $1,000. That's why most bikes use a fork like this, which is a fraction of the cost and fraction of the quality and safety. Speaking of things that make this bike different, the frame here is steel, not aluminum. I've even noticed that the welds are all very smooth, high quality. I've inspected all of the critical junctures and I don't see any flaws. So I'm definitely not worried about this bike frame ever cracking on me. The hub motor here is also high quality. So the brand here is Hentak. And physically, it's very similar to the Hentak motor on the Wired Freedom. And that's a good thing, because if you guys have seen that review of the Wired Freedom, you know that the performance is excellent. So this motor has a ton of potential for upgrading. Hentak motors also have steel gears, so very durable. And they're physically bigger than Bafang motors. I measured the diameter, 7 inches. My Bafang hub motor is 6 inches. So the motor is just physically bigger, should help with heat dissipation as well as efficiency. The rims are dual wall with these cutouts. And the purpose of these cutouts, aside from looking badass, is to help eliminate the rolling weight, which is a big factor with hub motors. They do have custom-made torque arms that fit into the frame. So you can see the dropout here. It has a horizontal dropout, and the torque arm fills that whole dropout, and it's double the thickness. So it really helps to secure the motor in place and add extra resistance to the rotational power of the motor. So I like these custom torque arms found on both sides. The disc brakes are just massive. Both of them are 203 millimeters in diameter, and they use just basic Tektro dual piston calipers. Would have liked to see quad piston. The shock in the back is a D&M Burner RCP-2S. And in this configuration, with the geometry of the bike, the performance of the suspension is just excellent, both the fork and this rear setup. The suspension has a ton of travel. It is by far the best setup I've ever used, and it's certainly one of the major selling points of this product. The seat, on the other hand, I'm not as excited about. It has a little bit of give, but it's pretty stiff overall, and it's slanted. It's slanted towards the front, so every time you ride the bike, you get a slight wedgie. Here's a question. Why does a nearly $4,000 bike that's designed to be used on trails not come with full-length fenders front and back? It should have a setup like this. Much more effective, keeps the bike as well as you clean when you're in inclement weather conditions. Overall, hopefully you guys can see that the quality of the components, the craftsmanship here, the attention to detail is a step above your average cheaper bike. Now, one area this bike isn't above average, in fact, it's very average, is the performance. And this is where it becomes very difficult to justify the $3,850 price tag. Let's bump it up to mode 5. We're on a slight incline, full throttle. You can get up to about 30 miles an hour, maybe even like 31 or 32. But the acceleration, the overall feeling of the power delivery, it's very nominal. If you've ridden any other bike with a 48 volt system, it's going to be almost identical to that. I think for this price tag, they should have given you a 60 volt battery. Then it would have been a much more compelling package. The performance would really stand out against other bikes that are half the price. The argument that P-51 would probably make here is that this is a street legal bike. It shouldn't go above 28 miles per hour. But the counter argument to that is, okay, well, if this is just an average street legal bike, why is the price tag then so expensive? So that's why I think this bike deserves a 60 volt battery. You can keep everything else the same, but this performance, I mean, I'm full throttle right now, is just not what I would expect for $3,850. But aside from the power, riding the bike is an absolute pleasure, mostly because of the great suspension and the quality components that make the bike feel extremely solid and secure. There's absolutely no wiggle, looseness, or anything like that when it comes to this bike. It feels like an expensive bike, aside from the fact that it's struggling to go up a slight hill. Yo, yo, yo.
Yo.
Check out the P-51 Bullet. How's the, this is also, they're both called the Bullet. I just noticed that. Sit on this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that long travel suspension, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing. Suspension, phenomenal. The frame, see how, like, they have mounting points in here? I'm going to add extra batteries. So, yeah. I already have plans to do a 72 volt upgrade with this bike, and I'm so excited. Because right now the power, it's like the same as yours. It's really nothing special. But it just has so much potential, the frame.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And that's what I'm... All right, you're going to mix in a little bit of nighttime riding for the sake of testing out the headlight. Now, I did want to talk about the display really quick. It's fairly useful. So, of course, we have speed. This bar here is amps, so you can see how many amps you're pulling. The maximum I've seen is 23. Yeah, 23, maybe 24 amps. So 24 amp controller, not great. What's 24 times 48? 24 times 48 equals a maximum wattage of 1152. And that's basically what I've been seeing. There is a watt reading down here, and it did just touch 1200 watts. If you hit the power button, you get a bit more info. The biggest and most useful one is the voltage. Oddly enough though, there's no decimal place, which makes it a lot less useful. So overall, I think I can sum up this bike with one sentence. The quality, the parts, the craftsmanship are super premium and well worth the price tag. But the performance of the electrical components, so the speed, acceleration, that's where this bike falls short, in my humble opinion. Now, there's reasons for that. In order to be street legal, like I just passed a cop a second ago, and I didn't worry at all because this is a street legal bike. That's a huge pro. But, you know, the price tag, nearly $4,000, you're comparing this against the Suron, which is 60 volts, something like 6,000 watts. And this bike, in comparison to those, is just not as good. Simple as that. But for me, the fact that this bike has such great fundamentals, such solid bones, quality components, it's the best foundation for a bike build. And that's where I think this shines. If you want to buy this with the intention of maybe keeping it stock for a little bit, but then eventually upgrading the battery, putting a better motor on it. I think the ceiling this bike has is potentially the highest of any other bike on the market. And I'm going to be converting this bike into a 72 volt behemoth. I've already ordered all of the components. 72 volt battery, 15 amp hours, phase runner controller, which has a maximum amp rating of 45 in comparison to the 24 I'm getting on this. That means this motor will run at 45 times 72, 3,240 watts. That's what I'm talking about. I have no doubt in my mind this motor can handle it, because for the past year I've been running a Bafang hub motor at 2,000 watts, and this one has steel gears. It's an inch bigger in diameter, better for heat dissipation. I also ordered BMX handlebars, which are gonna be like 6 inches taller. Oh yeah, and I ordered a full twist throttle on the right side. Right now there's a thumb throttle on the right side. It's fine, you get used to it after a little bit of time, but a full twist is fun and what this bike deserves. And that's it, I don't have to change anything else. The front fork, the shock in the back. What? Oh, okay. So I can go straight here. But yeah, all the other components are not going to be limiting factors. And I'm psyched about that. If I had to guess, when I'm done with this conversion, if you guys want to see this conversion, by the way, make sure you are subscribed. Same motor and everything, just a higher voltage battery, much more capable controller, which is the brains of the whole operation. Top speed, 40 miles an hour, which is more than enough. I care much more about acceleration and peppiness. And when it comes to that, 72 volts, 45 amp controller, 90 phase amps, the bike should be very peppy, even though it's heavier than average. So yeah, I'm super excited to convert this bike to 72 volts. I think once I do that, I'm truly gonna have something special here. But even in its stock form, we still have those high quality components and phenomenal suspension. I can't stress that enough. The biggest selling point of this bike by far is the suspension. The only area it falls short in its stock form is the performance of the electrical components. Because for the price tag, you could have bought a Sur-Ron or a Teleria. So yeah, that's my review, first look, whatever you want to call it, of the P-51. I'm a fan of it. It's expensive, I know. If you guys want to see anything else with this bike before I upgrade it, let me know in the comments. If you're still watching and enjoyed, leave a like, it helps out with the algorithm. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.